Welcome back. This is Seth Boza, Black Earth Productions, Blue Flame Healing Arts, Thought Science. For this segment, I'm speaking with a current initiate who's come on for another round. There's some very pertinent things that are going to be explained. So if Rodney, you want to pick up where we left off before we started, that'd be great, man.
Yeah, getting into all the fucking activations and energies that we're into here, the narrative that's being driven by these factions, they know what's at stake here. We're being attacked. We're also dealing with our own shit and then feeling the collective shit that's going on. They know all the shit that's being routed up to the fucking surface.
Okay, right. What must happen is people making connection to the core and their true power and the true essence of what is beyond all this fucking shit. Like I've been driving on this platform for a really long time. This, again, is a major factor in the things that are not being talked about enough. This is why nothing has changed. It's not enough to know about what the fuck is going on. That's necessary for awareness, but what's beyond it? This is what they do not want to happen. So
exactly.
You can stay in the spinner rack, or you can do the real work in order to step out of that fucking shit, knowing the difference. And that is when you become powerful and not only being able to expose this kind of stuff, but bring forth the viable solution that is necessary in order to override all of the system manipulation that is taking place, first within ourselves, then in turn with one another, and then from there, the reality field itself. We're going through the process, knowing the difference. You got to take some passion for all of this in order for it to actually happen, and not allowing ourselves to bypass the things that we need to be held accountable to, especially the relationship you have with yourself, right?
Yes, it is.
And with all the stuff that has been coming up in terms of the Magic Mirror Gate, like we talked about at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, that segment was very powerful. And one of the things that was in that was facing your true self, you know, looking in the gate and actually looking and facing that fucking mirror. You can't bypass the bullshit that is within us. We're not going to get away from it. But the courage that it takes to step into that and own it and allow yourself then to find your center and transmute that shit, it does take a level of maturity. It does take a level of commitment and tenacity and strength, getting into Urus, you know, the runes even. What's happening out there on the streets, as far as I'm concerned, is absolute bullshit. It's manipulation, it's control, it's all of that. Getting into the core wound, getting into all of the hijacking of the spindle of the energy force within humanity. And as long as they can keep the hijacked frequency fences locking us down, where do we go with all that? People have to understand what's at stake here, man. Why we're here at this moment. Each one of us has to find that within ourselves and then activate that shit with the higher force, connecting that within the circle of
You can attest to this yourself in context.
Yes. And that's the difference, because there's a lot at stake. We're not here just to have an existence and then die. We're here for the purpose of what's going on right now, man. Taking it back to my own self, going through the physical and emotional shamanic deaths that I had to go through, I knew that I had purpose and destiny that was beyond that I had to see and vision and self-actualization in the midst of that death. And so I had to encourage myself and I had to propel myself into that fucking vision. Otherwise you just give up and you walk away and I'm not willing to lay my sword down. Not that I want to fight, but that's what TWAS is all about, right? It's peace through strength in context to everything that we can fucking find within TWAS, within tier. Peace, to try to find that pathway to peace. But it's very difficult to find that pathway to peace when you have factions that don't want peace. They want to bring the war to your door. And it's not easy, man, but it's what we came here to do. I'm standing with my brothers and sisters who are doing the real work, who really are tapped in to what's going on here, man, and are not afraid to look death in the eyes, man. Not afraid of it.
It's coming to a point where we just need to make a choice and then move through whatever we got to fucking move through.
Exactly.
Why do we have to let the current narrative that's being skewed dictate our choices?
Exactly.
It's not what we think or feel or what the fuck is going on around us. It's what we decide.
Right, exactly. But it's the cauldron that we get pulled into if we don't know the difference. See?
Explain that.
It's being pulled into those poisonous waters and then allowing all the projection to come up from within your woundedness. And so you don't know the difference, spewing all this shit that comes up within you, and you're projecting that shit, and you get put in that cauldron, that poisonous water. It poisons the well. And you get put in that cauldron, the fucking fountain that's supposed to be coming up within you from your heart core intelligence, with all that divide and conquer shit, not knowing the difference, man. You get pulled into it. The next thing you know, man, you're taking a side. The next thing you know, you're polarized. The next thing you know, you're fucking doing shit, and you've lost your reasoning, you've lost your logic, you've lost your fucking intuition, and you're driving a narrative of projection from your woundedness. And again, in context to the higher force, you have to be initiated by the higher force. That's where that connection is. That's where that spark comes from, man.
Knowing the difference, it's the proper knowledge and wisdom is absolutely necessary here. Otherwise, it's just running on the fucking programs.
Yeah, that's all you're doing, man. And allowing those fucking loops to continue on. And there's no one standing up and saying, it stops here with me. That's what we have to do, be the cause point of that in our bloodline, in context to the ancestors, is saying, no, man, that stops with me right here. This is where it gets healed. And that's the challenge that I've given myself with my own bloodline. I take time to actually, and I know this sounds weird, but I take time to actually go to where my ancestors are laid, where they came over from Ireland during the 1860s, man. I take time actually to go to the graveyard and lay on those graves, man, and feel into my bloodline. Feeling into it, man, I'm making a shamanic connection to it and transmute it. And that is editing the subconscious. That is working with the blood codes. Let them come up, let them transmute, and then bring them into a place, into your true hardcore intelligence, where that healing takes place.
And it is a matter of feeling into it, allowing yourself to move through those waters that are pouring forth in order to wash away the things that are necessary so that we can see clearly past, in hindsight, to the overlay. Who we are ultimately is who we are creating ourselves to be in the face of a lot of these things that can come up. But again, this is where the false ego gets its identity. And when that is confronted with the power of what is there at the core being ignited from within oneself, it is now pushing all of these things to the surface in order to be transmuted, coming into waking consciousness. When these things do come up, this is why accountability are so fucking important. Not to just let things run amok and we can just act however the fuck we want. No. We have to master this gift of free will that we have been given and not squander it. See, we have to want to change, because to have true intimacy, to have true connection, this must be allowed, but not judging yourself and not judging the other person as well. Seeing it for what it is. None of it is who we actually fucking are, unless we're not willing to be held accountable. Then it is who the fuck you are, because you're not actualized in context to anything else, and allowing the overlay, which first needs to be seen for what it is, and then rattle the fuck out. You just transmute and alchemize that shit. But here often is where we judge ourselves, also one another, not knowing the fucking difference. In worst case scenarios, it's used against you on a fucking trigger. But see, we can't act like this. We can't be like this. We are better than this shit, and we have to want to be better.
We talk about healing the dragon, man. Well, getting into what happened with the Vietnam War, and all that stuff was coming up in context to a lot of what's happening here. Here, it just seems to be like on another level. Shit's fucked up. Somehow we need to change it. We just all don't know how. We're actually trying to do shamanic work, not really knowing the difference or understanding, projecting that stuff from people up through themselves and projecting it back out, like a shaman would in a tribe. But not knowing the difference or really understanding it, getting caught up in all the other bullshit, and then getting raked out. There was something coming up there, man. And most everyone that was searching for something true within themselves got caught up in that fucking shit.
And people do not understand what the real pathwork trajectory is here in context, which has been lined out. These arts and sciences and studying that shit and coming into alignment, moving through the healing process and all these different sorts of things. And it's not to get focused to necessarily anything that we're going through more than our connection to the core, that true divine spark that is there guiding us through the night.
Yes, that's a great way to put it, man. That's exactly what's happening.
And there is no darkness but ignorance. Ignorance of what? What I just said.
Yeah,
this is one of the main things that I don't hear, for the most part, people talking about that needs to be talked about and experienced on the level.
Yes.
On the level, man. You can have all the knowledge in the world about what the fuck is going down, but without this proper knowledge, we're not going to be able to navigate this current hour that we are in correctly. And this is what I know the higher force is screaming, trying to get everyone's attention, like the fool card, man, the white wolf at the feet of the fool. And all these people walking off the fucking cliff.
Right. Which in fact could be reconciled if they understood. Again, it is that soul spark, right? That ignition that's taking place by the higher force within your soul, man. Right?
Yep.
But you got to want it. You got to want that connection to the higher force. You've got to want to be a seeker of truth. It has to be something that is within you, something that matters to you, something that is most important. And that's something that I've always, from a child, had, is wanting to uncover truth. You know, everybody's has their own trajectory, and you know, we have different dispositions.
We're not navigating the same energies, but we're all in this together. We're all in this together, and it's important to know the difference here and not get caught up in the differences, but see how the energies correspond in context to navigation. The complements are in turn made into differences, and this is what we hold in scrutiny.
Yeah.
In light of the amplification of all the issues and the problems and the bullshit that are going on right now.
Yes.
And this is one thing in context to communication. Do we want to understand one another?
Boy, that's a good point. Do we want to really understand one another, or do we just want to be heard? That really.
We all want to be heard, but do you want to understand and not allow these triggers to fucking rule us? We can move through things in a way I can't even begin to describe. What can be created, what can manifest in context to co-creation, but to achieve harmony within oneself in order to put yourself in a place of understanding when it comes to proper knowledge and wisdom. One thing that people need to realize, especially on a trigger, is that more often than not, when this is happening, blinded by a lot of the overlay fucking bullshit, everyone thinks they're right in their own fucking eyes, man. This is the false ego driven by the shadow. We just had this eclipse take place.
Yeah.
So again, nothing is what it seems, especially with the transits, all this other fucking shit that's going the fuck on.
Right.
And we have to see it for what the fuck it is, recognizing how all of this fucking shit is going down, because it is forcing everybody, whether they want to or not, to face themselves.
Yes. Again, taking it back to the segment we did at Magick Mirror Gate, that was one of the reasons why I hit you up, because I'm like, well, there's some shit coming, man. And it's like, hey, we need to take a look at it. We couldn't have predicted what is happening right now with what's going on. But, you know, one of the things that was said in that segment is that we're all going to have to face the mirror in 2020, man. And this is exactly what's happening. And I can tell you that it hasn't been an easy year for me and healing, even though it's been hard and I've had to deal with getting hit and all kinds of things coming up within me. But yet I can still know the difference and arise out of that and be a better man for it, be a better person, be a better human, mastering human consciousness, not being afraid to look in the mirror, some of the things I need to change in my own life. Humanity's grounded into the constructs, man, you know, the inverted Saturn energy. They're grounded into that. What is humanity going to ground to if they don't have a bridge to come across? There has to be a bridge, man, that can be accessed in context to our higher awareness and our higher consciousness. We're building that within ourselves, and then that's going to project out into the reality. But that takes time to construct. It's not something that's just going to happen. It's something that we have to put our time, our energy, our tears, our blood, our love, everything into and focus.
Right. And it is all about bridging to the core.
Exactly, man.
Bridging to the core essence.
And with the South Node going into Sagittarius now, that's the energy that's being amplified here in context to the transit to Jupiter and Pluto in Capricorn right now. So all that transformation, all that power is being expanded from Pluto through Jupiter. And we're all feeling that transit right now when that shifted from Capricorn into Sagittarius when it made that transit. So that South Node is the energy, man, that we're dealing with right now. The North Node being Gemini is what we need to go to, which is integrating the polarity and allowing the upgrade of your first eye in context to what you're seeing and knowing the difference. Being able to then breathe that out in truth from your lungs, out of your mouth, through your throat, and speak that truth, man. Speak the truth of what you're seeing. This is how those nodals are working, those nodal points. So you've got that south node in Sagittarius, which is connected to Jupiter, which is right now in conjunction with Pluto. The energies that are coming forth are transformative. The alchemical process is being expanded from Pluto, and all that stuff that's in the basement of the underworld is rising to the surface.
Recognizing that is nothing to do with the core. It's the overlay. It's the programming.
Exactly.
It's all of the issues and the problems and whatever fucking shit. And like I was saying earlier, in context of communication, when it comes to Gemini, understanding.
Yes.
Knowing the difference and not allowing the triggers and the programming and the overlay and the woundedness to be what is running our state of fucking mind. Gears might be fucking grinding when it comes to certain things, but if you can't pull back without getting thrown into those fucking loops, which is what the lockdown equation is all about, by the way. If you can't pull back, take control of the positive and negative charge of the energy force itself with the spindle, then it's just going to be the same play out of all the issues and the problems and whatever narrative people are fucking driving from the underworld.
Yeah. And you're not connecting to any change whatsoever. You're just continuing on the same behaviors. There is no change with that. Unless you can, if you can see it. And that is understanding that Gemini energy to your first eye. This is what is balancing the hemispheres as it's coming forth. So we can see the difference. So like you said, pull back and then be the master of that positive and negative polarities, bringing it to the center of our core essence, pulling it back and recalibrating. And then coming forth and speaking it forth in truth. And aligning ourselves with our thought and emotion with our true hardcore intelligence. That's the circle of the magician, man.
Exactly. And so to navigate whatever trajectory, in light of that, it is to declare that the progression rate of what has been unfolding is still taking place. It's still happening.
It absolutely is. And that's the thing, is that it's happening, I believe, on an accelerated level, man. I've been feeling a lot of stuff coming up within me, but also the acceleration rates of times, that I'm dealing with things like between, 2 points, man. So, before what would have taken me weeks to work through is taking me days. There's a difference with the path work now, as far as I'm concerned, or with my own anyway, that what would have maybe thrown me into a tailspin for 2 weeks triggered me for a period of time. Now I can catch it sometimes even before it happens, catch it before it actually sticks. Or if it does come in and it does pull me into a place of being indifferent with myself, feel that grind within myself, I can get out of it a lot faster, man. It seems like my acceleration rate that's taking place between the time things are burning, in context to the Athenor, what's being burned up, the blackening and the whitening. There's a balance that's taking place within me with that I can feel. It's like, yep, there it is, man. It's coming. It's coming up within me. But guess what, man? I can rise up out of those ashes now that are being burnt, and I can come up into that fucking phoenix, into that whitening.
And continuing to encourage and empower one another and speak life.
That's the key.
It's an absolute necessity right now. How are we treating ourselves and one another? Wanting to change, wanting to become better. This is the whole other aspect of this path work. It's not just about knowledge, knowing the difference in context of what we're dealing with in the reality field, but how we are towards ourselves and one another.
Yes.
Because in context to what has been taking place, just look at how everybody has been treating one another.
And that's what's projecting in the reality field with everyone. You see it on Facebook. You see it on the news.
Dude, this shit is running on a goddamn fucking program, man.
Absolutely.
We all deal with issues and problems in life, and for the most part, there isn't anything that can't be fucking overcome and hammered through.
Absolutely.
This is something fucking different. Far fucking different.
Yeah.
And it's not natural in terms of any sort of progression. It is something that needs to be seen for what the fuck it is. It's an attack. It's an all-out assault.
And it's there to draw us out, man. It wants to draw us out into a fight, into a battle, to being indifferent with each other, to not give each other grace, to be indifferent with ourselves and not be in alignment with our true identity, our true hardcore, to stop the momentum of our alchemical process that we were in. That's one of the reasons why all this is happening, is to create a fucking distortion that's going to overlay what we're doing, what we're accomplishing with the alchemical process and the regenesis with all of us, and to drop this over the top of us in an attack and then ignite that shit with all these events.
This is something that has been there within the fourth veil for a very long time. It's just recognizing the difference of what we're actually navigating through and why it's amplifying the fucking shit out of all this crap that, again, we would otherwise be able to move through the correct way, knowing the difference. And we have to hold the same attitude that we would in context, even though things have intensified this year. It's the same principles and actions applied at any given moment. It doesn't matter.
They've just dropped the hammer on everyone. But it's still the same thing, man. It's not any different. It's just happening on a collective consciousness level with humanity at this moment. But we as alchemists, as mystics, shamans, we have to know the difference here. We have to be able to stand in the middle of this and know the difference and tap into our center, man. If we can't do that here, all the work that we've put in and all the time that we've spent doing this is the place we do have to take the stand with each other, arm in arm. And that's what I've been putting out there, man. This is the place where we have to take the stand in the middle of all this that's taking place. Allow that flame within our core to be absolutely ignited here together. Can't put it any other way, man.
I agree.
You know? This isn't the time to be indifferent with one another, to allow wedges to come between us. This is the time, again, we have to stand arm in arm, heart to heart. This, more than anything else, is the opposite. You see what's going on. And that's the challenge, man, is not to get raked out and caught up into all that indifference.
Pick whatever side you want to on the spokes of the wheel, man. You've got to know the fucking difference with it, man.
You do. And you can get into all the conspiracy theories and
keep chasing that fucking rabbit down the fucking rabbit hole, man. You just keep tumbling, man.
Exactly. What matters is, what are you going to do? There's all kinds of things being spun out there, man. Layers and layers and layers of shit that leads to more layers of shit. And it's an endless rabbit hole that you can go down on the feedback loop.
People do need to be aware of certain fucking things. And if they don't know how it fucking works, that's how you just keep tumbling.
Right.
Again, going back to the bridge, this shit needs to be sealed the fuck out and bridged. It's like that song I wrote, Bridge the Abyss.
Exactly, man.
What was it that drove us away from ourselves and one another?
Right.
All those aeons ago.
Right.
Back up for review.
It is, isn't it?
That's all it is.
That's what's riding up, isn't it? The trans.
What was it that drove us away? Dark force infiltration.
Yeah. And that's been driving the narrative. Like you said, it's coming back up. Are we going to take it? It's not who I am. And say, we can bridge that shit.
Listen, man, the universe abhors a vacuum.
Yeah. It's one giant womb, man.
But it's not who we are.
Exactly.
That is where, again, the false identity sprang forth.
Yes. And we have a lot of really good analogies out there, man, in context to the mythos.
And again, it's not even to give focus to any of this more than what is beyond.
Yeah.
Because there is far more beyond all of this fucking crap. And this is what I'm getting at, because as long as that narrative is being driven, it's just going to keep playing itself out. Now, the hour that we are in is one of the greatest times in fucking history to know the difference here. You got to pull back, recalibrate, knowing the difference so that it can be released, and also that reconciliation can take place in an even more powerful way in context of the progression that has been leading up to these present moments. They can't fucking stop what is coming.
And that's the thing. Somehow, by triggering all these events and doing what they're doing, I'm looking at it going, they're putting themselves in quite a vulnerable position to spin all this shit into the reality field and trigger all these events, man, within humanity. And if we can catch this to our core, connecting with the higher force here in context to the grid works, this is an opportunity for us to see if we can get our shit together.
It's about knowing the difference. Doesn't matter what we think or feel. Doesn't matter what the circumstances are. It's about knowing the difference. Knowing. And that knowing can be trusted. And you might be called insane. You might be called fucking crazy. You might be called whatever the fuck. It doesn't matter.
I know there's a lot of people out there that have been doing a lot of work, putting the nose to the grindstone, so to speak. And why would you want to stop here, when this is the place where, even though it doesn't look like things are going great right now, yeah, shit's going on out there, but what's happening within you, within me, what's happening inside? We're all being challenged at this place to level our asses up and to take this initiation. And this is where we have to allow that space within ourselves to hold grace for ourselves and one another, man, and not be so eager to jump at the bit to defend. We don't need to defend our position. Truth doesn't need any defense at all.
Or defend our woundedness.
Exactly.
Because if we go to defend our woundedness, again, this is where the false identity is working to cling.
Yes, exactly. And that's where the shadow dragon will raise its head and project its shit onto your brothers and sisters, man. Not knowing the difference, thinking that you're right. That is the place where you've lost your center. And this is what it's all about. Like you said, man, recalibrating, pulling back, and being able to master that polarity, bring it back to the center, which is everything to do with Libra, man. Not having your heart weighed down into a place where you can't balance it with a feather, man.
Right.
That heart's so heavy, man, that it's driving the narrative to the shadow dragon, and you're not getting out of your underworld that way. You're just not. You're stuck. And that's why the Libra energy is the gateway to the elemental magician, because if you can't find your center and balance with magic, you're never going to affect the reality field. And this is where I take it myself, being a Libra ascendant, and I can't come into finding my center. I don't have access to my true hardcore intelligence. So these basic occult understandings with the circle of magician, with the laws of alchemy and cosmic law, are absolutely foundational to this path work.
Right. And it's through application and accountability, again, knowing the difference with anything that does come up at any given moment, we can change our trajectory. Right now, I'm going to go ahead and move this segment into a break. You're speaking with Rodney. This is Seth Gisboza, Black Earth Productions. We'll be right back after the break. We're back now from the break, doing a review of things that were predicted to happen over 4 years ago on my end, in context to what I saw. And despite the outlook of things at the moment, it is to take note that we must have courage and we must continue to cultivate that inner strength that is there within us. All the while it can seem bleak, but as an encouragement, it's to set a reminder within ourselves right now that we do have the opportunity to set things back on course from what the power of the higher force is working to reveal to us all right now.
That is something that we all need more of, applying that knowledge and allowing wisdom to navigate that energy force within ourselves. I don't know about anyone else, but I know when I connect to my sensor and my heart core, the empowerment of that is nothing I've ever felt. And that's the cone of power. That's that place that we need to live in, allowing that vortex, that field spin, man, connecting. This is where we have to take it and not allowing all the other shit to hijack us.
It's multi-layered, it's multifaceted. There's a lot of noise.
A lot of noise.
There's a lot of static. And the static right now, as we know, is being amplified more than the proper knowledge and wisdom that we are getting into here. Because it is very emotional, what the fuck is happening. But what about that rational capacity where we can pull back, recognize it for what the fuck it is? You know, put some fucking humor into it, right?
Yes, absolutely, man. Yeah. I was just talking with somebody about that the other day, man. I was like, you know what? We need to fucking have some joy in this thing as well. You know, we can't just be grinding it out day after day after day. You know, there has to be a place where we can laugh at it as well and find some joy in the path work.
And ultimately, that's what it's all about. Being able to laugh at these things and see them for what they are. And you're like, you know what? This doesn't fucking rule me. We have to change. We have to want to change. We have to want to become better. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
I am held accountable. We can't just act however the fuck we want.
Yeah, because there's
always... If someone loves you, if someone really cares about you, they're going to call you the fuck out.
That's what it is.
At the same time, not hold it against you. Let's become better. Let's become sharper. Let's become more powerful.
That is where the iron sharpens the iron.
Right. Instead of allowing the wounds and the fucking issues and the problems and whatever the fuck is going on to dictate reality.
Right. Exactly.
We can't allow these things to dictate or assume identity. If someone is not willing to be held accountable, now you got a fucking problem.
Right. Exactly.
Now you're dealing with someone that doesn't give a fuck.
That's where vibrational correspondence will kick in, because that will just fall off with this stuff, man, with what we're doing. It's like, okay, we all know what we have to do, but it's being able to access that and put it into action. That's why it's so important to understand your blueprint, man, because your disposition is going to have to be navigated in context to your Mars energy, you know, your moon, your sun, your north node, your south node. That's all very important to know. And I think people need to really look more into that as well. You know, all the arts of gnosis, but, you know, getting into the astropsychology aspect is also very, very important. You know, the Mars energy, finding your action and putting it into the reality field to create. The question is, what are we creating, man? To what end? And that's where we have to know the difference within ourselves. Take that, bring it forth, and be proud of what we're doing here. There's nothing wrong with pride or taking pride in our pathwork, man, and what we are accomplishing and the victories that we're having, and then gaining strength from those victories and using that as foundations to spring off of to the next one. That's the law of momentum that we have to gain back here. Stuff came and dropped on us, and it was there to stop the process. Because there's all kinds of snares and traps and foxholes and ditches and all kinds of shit that you can fall in, man, that got sidetracked as you're walking down the path. But you're still on that path, man. And you find that strength within yourself.
You can't give anything to focus in context to Pluto. You can't give anything to that focus.
That makes sense.
With the Saturn conjunct Pluto shit that's been going on the last 9 fucking months, nothing is what it seems. And that is what is happening on a subconscious level, skewing.
That's good. That makes a whole lot of sense, man.
And I remember when it started coming up, there's no one person out there that doesn't deal with issues and fucking problems. Not one fucking person. Let's recognize it for what it is, recalibrate, and choose to become better. First unto yourself.
I
and
feel
any issues and problems that come up, in context to any sort of situation. This is something that I was explaining recently. It has nothing to do with anybody around me. So if I'm flipping the fuck out, or if someone's flipping the fuck out, unless they're going out of their way to intentionally cause harm, there's a lot of things that we do unintentionally. But because of the triggers and all of the other issues that we all deal with as individuals, shit can come up. And if you got one person triggered out and the other person's triggered the fuck out.
And this is where the communication has to be in alignment, man. You know, you can't harbor a trigger from someone else that decides, hey, guess what? I'm going to harbor that, you know, become bitter about it. And then I'm going to project that bitterness onto you when in fact I didn't communicate, or I didn't ask you what you meant by that, or what was the intention behind it. I don't even know. I'm just taking it through my filter and then allowing it then to embed in my energy field and fester there. And then I'm going to project that in context to the woundedness that I have out of myself. No, we have to open those communication lines. Open those communication lines with each other. And if something hits you wrong, or you feel indifferent about something that's said, you got to bring it forth and say, what did you mean by that? What was your purpose behind that? And this is where things get worked out. And then see, that comes in, and then it removes that hook that gets placed in with all that shit that gets twisted in the air. It's all that shit that when you're speaking that gets twisted as it's going out your throat chakra, going into the ears of someone else. That's that bullshit that happens with all the shit that goes on in the air and all the filters, you know?
Right.
And so we have to communicate what we're feeling and not have this ego that's coming up. This guy said this and this and this, and now you're talking behind a person's back and you don't even know what the deal is or what their intent really was. You're just pulling it through your filter and into your woundedness, and then you're projecting that bullshit to somebody else, creating more bullshit for yourself. Why? What is the point of doing all that?
Yeah,
when you can just communicate it at the moment and have it dealt with and done and out of the way, and you're back at it, man. That's where we have to have maturity. We got to grow the fuck up.
Yeah.
We can't be that person anymore. There's too much at stake. And we can't allow our ego to get in the way either. Well, you know, I was right and you were wrong. Bantering back and forth. This is in context to Mercury, you know, the communications, which rules Gemini. This is what we're in right now with our North Node. This is where we need to heal.
Also pay attention to the inner dialogue.
Yes.
What are the stories that we are telling ourselves about ourselves?
Right.
What are the stories that we're telling ourselves about the things that we have experienced in life? What are the things we're telling about ourselves that we assume in context to our projections and the woundedness, putting that on others?
Exactly. It's a relationship that we have with ourselves that's going to project. So what relationship are you having with yourself? Are you being indifferent with yourself? Are you in a place where you're continuing to self-sabotage? You've got to come out of that. You've got to bring yourself into that place where you are actually coming into a place of peace and love with yourself, man. And that projection that comes out of you is a direct reflection of the relationship that you have with yourself. It does take a level of grace to be able to give grace to yourself, to give grace to others. Again, the communication lines have to be open. If we close the communication lines, what you said earlier was bang on, man, when you said a person not wanting to change. All they want to do is cause harm and destruction. But to our brothers and sisters who are on this path work, we have to have the communication lines absolutely open and vibrating at in higher dimensional awareness. We have to have those igniting all the time between us, man, when we're in communication and allowing things to work themselves out. To think that we don't need each other here. You know, your life matters more than mine, or my life matters more than yours, or all that bullshit. You know, it's absurd. And again, making that connection to the higher force, that's always been the thing that I've searched for. And coming into these arts of gnosis and being initiated has been a culmination of searching I've been doing my whole life. It brought it full circle for me so that I would be able to actually experience who I am. I ain't perfect and I'm not there yet. I haven't arrived with anything, but I am entering a level that I know exists. And, you know, to that, man, in context to the school and the platform, kudos, man, because that's what this platform's all about. Being able to connect all those dots together with the arts of gnosis and put them into the playing field into a single power is what this is all about. This is where the magic comes from. The overflow in alignment with true hardcore intelligence. The overflow is the manifestation of the spirit in real time in the reality field. But to have that place where you know you connected with the higher force, you know that your emotions and thoughts are in alignment with your true heart core intelligence in that connection, and that overflow is happening within your heart core. Now that's the place where I want to walk, and mastering it to the cone of power. And I've tapped into that place numerous times in the past 3 years now since I've been hooked up here. And it takes time, it takes effort, it takes patience, it takes courage, tenacity, all of these things to put yourself in that position. Encouraging everyone out there, what else do you have to do? You might as well get yourself into a position where you can feel that. You can have that within your life. There's nothing like knowing that out of the overflow of your connection with the higher force that has changed your life.
Yeah, it's absolutely real.
It is real, man.
And it is also absolutely challenged, because this is what they don't want to happen.
No, they don't want anyone knowing who they really are, let alone being able to affect the reality fields with the overflow of your connection to. This is what they're trying to stop. This is what they're trying to thwart. All of this is taking place. Do I get in distortions? Yes. Do I get in bullshit? Yes. Do I get triggered? Yes. But I don't stay there. See?
Right.
There's a higher purpose here. And I think when a person can really get past that victim mentality, that's really where the trigger is. I mean, are you a victim or you're not a victim? Well, I've been a victim of all kinds of shit. My hidden enemies in my 6th house, in Pisces, all that shit. Yeah, I got a lot of fucking enemies, man. I came to the point through the initiations and the shamanic deaths that I did not come here. Once a person can get past that victim mentality, that's the distortion, man. That's what they're out there doing. That's why all this is being spun out there. We're a victim to our past. We're a victim to all the bullshit that happened to us. I'm a victim to all the stuff that happened to my Irish heritage. Yeah, all that's within the blood codes. Yeah, it's all in there. But you're not a victim to it. It's not our true identity.
Right, exactly. Even though things have happened to us, even though we still may carry residue, the things that happened to us during childhood, or whatever's there within the blood codes, or anything else in life to the branch off of certain fucking things. All of that is what the dark ones are feeding on and working to keep festering, and locks people into false identity. And it's not to bypass any of these things. It's not to undermine anything that you're dealing with as an individual. It's just to know the difference and why certain amplifications are taking place to triangulate and keep people in that state of fucking mind. Because if they were to break out of that shit, which in turn is what the dark ones fear, that's the fear that we experience when we're going through this process. And so when you're going into it and you start to feel these things come up, and you might not even fucking know where certain things are coming up or why it's happening, it's to recognize the difference and go into it with courage and transmute and alchemize this shit so that it doesn't rule and reign our existence. And also allowing it cushion so that we can be cathartic, so that we can get it out, give it grace, and then allow it to lift. And that is when the peacock stage is experienced. This initiation in terms of making connection to the higher force and the core and everything that I've talked about for years and have also experienced is the true path work. And once you cross that threshold and the phoenix rises, that is when you will see clearly that you are not your past, you are not your woundedness, you are not your trauma, you are not the things that happened to you. None of that is going to be in the way of seeing clearly what is there within the core and the connection to the higher force and true intelligence. And that is where an overflow can spring forth. It's the wellspring. Take it to the 3 wells of the Nordic mythos. The well of Urd, and Urd is the past. The well of the past, fucking with the present, to which word Nandi is addressing. And Skud is untangle that web of trauma, that web of bullshit, again, which is what the shadow is feeding upon, festering, blinding us from what is actually there. It's a lot easier said than done. And again, it's not to bypass anything, but to be present where you are and recognize that the higher force has you. The higher force isn't going to allow its own to perish. The higher force is not going to keep us in a place of hopelessness and despair. It is that power that moves us through these things. The higher force is real. And in turn, you could take this to the Kundara in context to the Keylontic sciences. Again, there's many different ways of explaining this. Now, in the last segment, I did get into this, but I'm also going to share it with this one. Now, things in context to the Kundara, another term for this, in light of the reference here, is the Yanas, the eternal consciousness projected by the higher force itself in order to form the three primal sound field Kundara energies, from and through which the consciousness life of our reality field is actually seated without any of the fucking distortions. The Kundara are geomantic in form, not in context to this distorted sacred geometry bullshit. I'm talking about the underpinning geometry of the universe. The underpinning geometry. The true geometry. The geomantic essence of what this is all about. You know, and getting into geomancy, the ley lines of the earth, the dragon lines, okay? They would appear as geomantic shapes of living light when viewed from our perspective here. And in terms of the Inyani Elder Council, or our cosmic family consciousness, the Kundara is the legitimate ascended master level and correspond to the three levels of energy in this reality. Take it back to the three core chakra system. Now, the Kundara are the first primal sound field. This is everything to do with the blue flame, specifically. The first primal sound field, the Akadic level, which represents the last passage of inner ascension into full expansion of consciousness and at one-ment with the higher force. And see, this is why I use the blue flame in context, not just as an image or something flashy. This is what it means. This is the very definition of what it is all about. Because I know this shit is real. I absolutely know it through and through. And despite my flaws, despite my setbacks and delays and all the fucking challenges of Saturn or whatever the hell is going on with me as an individual, I know what is there within my core. There is a very strong conviction there within myself, and I can't be shaken. It's no guesswork for me. I know that I know that I know. And so when I'm looking into this, the singular blue flame sound tone identity as it's translated into audible sound as Ra. And it's not Ra in context to any Egyptian god or pantheon. Okay? And in some spiritual traditions, this is an inaudible tone as it's been referred as the sound of the in-breath and out-breath of the higher force. Okay, get away from fucking religion, because fuck religion. Religion just gives you some fucking breadcrumbs. It doesn't actually teach us how to do this. And so the audible sound translation of the Akadic blue flame sound tone, as it is spoken, as it is evoked, is what the hell we're getting at. And taking it back to the Inyani collective, who were responsible for seeding life. This goes back to the original codex. Like I've said for years, I'm working to take things back to the original. And if you have that codex, then you are going to hear what I'm saying here. It's no guesswork. It's real. It's absolutely real. And it doesn't matter what an individual is dealing with. And the more you're actually fucking dealing with, it's a key indication of how powerful you actually fucking are. That's the catch-22 here. And when the Kundara activates within our bodies on a multidimensional level, the consciousness of it, again, is the Kundara. And this is our birthright here in context. Part of the birthright is to become an ascended master. I remember listening to Thunder Wizard talk about this in context to the Alpha, the original humans, the Alpharian consciousness. This is another way of putting it. So, to the blue flame, healing arts, and occult science, this is what we're getting at here in context to this reference. There's another way of putting it. So we can't force blame on all the issues and the problems, or force blame on all the fucking triggers, knowing the difference. If you don't know the difference, then you're not going to see how you're blinded by all that fucking shit to what is really there past it all.
Right.
Blinded. So what we got to do here is rip off the fucking blindfold, see it for what the fuck it is, and go, you know what? I am not my woundedness. I am not my triggers. I'm not what happened to me. And start to define yourself in context.
Yeah. The cataclysms and the traumatic events that took place in our history isn't who we are.
Who we are is who we choose to become.
That's right.
You can flip the script at any given fucking moment.
Yes. And you can change your trajectory
at any given moment.
at any given moment. Exactly, man.
So that we're not pulled into the fucking void by avoiding these things and seeing them all for what the fuck they are. And going, okay, I know what this is. I'm not going to let it rule me. And I'm not going to sit here and point the fucking finger knowing the fucking difference, but let other people know this is not who the fuck you are. This is not us.
Exactly. Absolutely, man.
None of it.
So true, man.
And knowing the difference here is key if we are going to fucking evolve. Right?
Yeah, right.
And make things better and make things good. That's what I want for my own life in terms of I don't give a fuck what the hell.
Exactly. Yeah, because putting yourself in the hot seat, taking it back to yourself, putting yourself in that position, where do I need to change? And where do I need to recalibrate? That opens that space up. Otherwise, what are you doing? You're just projecting bullshit, putting yourself in the hot seat. See? And that's taking it to everyone, you know, me, you, everyone else that's listening, all this. And that's the space we have to create with this, man, with each other, you know, and that's the difference here. Again, there's nothing that can't be healed. There's nothing that can't be reconciled. There's nothing that's been severed that can't come back together stronger with a stronger bond.
Well, hey, Rodney, it was awesome speaking with you. Hopefully everybody out there has been able to feel into the things that have been discussed in this specific segment. I know for myself, the conviction that is there within my core in terms of a lot of the things that you have touched upon are also burning and blazing. And with everything, we do need to defer to the higher force so that the shackles of blind ignorance and indifference do not overshadow and hold us down and hold us back from that place within ourselves and one another. If anybody out there is interested in the mystery school and are seeking a true initiation into the occult, then send me an email at blackearthproductions with an S at hotmail.com. Check out the website, the services page at blackearthproductions with AC.com. Appreciate your efforts, appreciate your passion, because you're on this. We'll talk again soon.
Absolutely, man.
And so with that, everyone, the results are clear. And they're absolutely real in terms of what it means to connect to the power of the higher force. And if the force is going to truly awaken from within us, it's to recognize the difference with everything. Here and now, we have the opportunity to recalibrate and set the trajectory back into alignment. Yet at these gates, we must set to death the overlaying context so that the birth and the actualization of who we truly are can spring forth from the well. Seth Esposa, Black Earth Productions. Be empowered, be encouraged.